Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. This is episode 423 of Daily Global Insights. And joining me is my co-host 𝙒𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙤. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, good morning to everybody. Happy to be here.
Sridharji, I want you to jump right into what Bhutan is doing. Its prime minister now wants to include China in the talks on Doklam. I thought India spent a lot of capital and exercise and heavy lifting to save that for Bhutan. And what is going on, sir?
I think it's a significant development, and we probably will hear more about this. This is the Prime Minister in his TV interview to a European television. I think it's probably a Belgian television channel. When this question came up, he has indicated that there are probably three parties to the issue, and because we share a common border, and we probably three of us need to sit together and resolve this so that there's no future tensions, because this was the question that was posed. Why he made a U-turn, and is there behind the scene pressure from Mr. Xi Jinping and his team remains to be seen. Also, we know that there's some houses that have been constructed by the Chinese around the border, Sriji.
Sridharji, it reminds me of a story that I read when I was growing up. There is a house, a thief comes to rob the house, and then the policeman comes to set order to the house, and the house owner now wants to have the thief sit with him and talk to the policeman about how the property is going to be shared. What nonsense, sir.
Complete nonsense. I think what China is attempting to do is extend that border 7 kilometers, which effectively almost touches the Siliguri, the line, which probably is a huge security problem for India. And this is happening when the SCO meet is going on, and the National Security Advisor is chiding China about all the border issues, Sriji.
And Sridharji, a couple of things. We were one of the few sites to report the help that US gave to India in trying to corner China in last year, December ambush that they thought they can walk in and occupy area in Arunachal Pradesh. Why
Tawang.
Is it Tawang, right? So why is it that then after that, the External Affairs Minister says that China is a very big adversary? I mean, what was the need for that statement? Is it strategic ambiguity? I'm being very nice here.
Well, I think that they're dealing aggression with aggression, which is the only language that China understands. If you go back to the original Doklam issue, both sides, stood their position before the Chinese realized that the Indians are not going to blink. And India had very clear and specific advantage of the Chinese positions, and they were ill-equipped at that point of time to make further incursion. So the hard stance that both National Security Advisor and the External Affairs Minister took helped them, and they have decided that's the way they're going to deal with the Chinese.
Let's move on to banking. How much money can one bank lose in the form of deposits? They had 175 billion total. The depositors withdrew 142 billion in a single day. Sridharji, there is some inside job at work here. There is no other way $142 billion can leave a bank, sir. I'm talking about Silicon Valley Bank, and we also talked about the Chinese connection to that. Sridharji, was this also one of the tools used by China?
No, Ji, I think that just to kind of little bit reset, $42 billion was withdrawn on March 9th. We reported that. A 100 billion withdrawal request was placed from a number of depositors on March 10th. That's when FDIC and the Fed kind of looked at it and said, no, we got to shut down. And they would not have allowed that $100 billion to fly, because totally there's only $175 billion in deposits. So $142 billion would have been unthinkable. This data was reported by Michael Barr, the Fed Vice Chair for Supervision. So, the regulators have been, the House and the Senate have been at him, which is to say, did you guys go to sleep and what the hell you guys were doing when this was going on right in the neck of the woods, 3G. As far as the Chinese is concerned, they want to make a buck out of this, so they basically allowed the SVB to fund their startup ecosystem. I mean, it's not illegal. I mean, nobody says it's illegal. The question is, would you have US taxpayers funding a bailout which goes to feed the Chinese tech ecosystem? That's the fundamental question there, Shriji.
Sridharji, last question, last clarification on startups. I have been reading now, last couple of years, most of the money that's being put into startups is funny money. Is it true?
I don't know how to answer this question, but let me kind of think. There's always funny money, put it that way. Whether all of it is funny money, I don't know, but there's certainly funny money. That would be my response to that. But it's all kind of, when you look at the money that flew into the startup ecosystem, it's all the money that flew from the Fed's balance sheet, as well as through the Fed's balance sheet into the system through a vast amount of the COVID programs. Right? There's no way that this money could have, this much amount of money could have gone into the system in such a short span of time, but it happened during that particular period. Otherwise, you would not have 50%, 55% of deposits in smaller banks, which are uninsured, which is a very highly unusual situation that we have experienced, 3G.
Well, keeping money away from prying eyes is one expression that comes to my mind. So let's move on. Global news headlines. India's National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, is speaking at the SCO meet. He stresses the importance of nations respecting sovereignty, not using force and pressure to change status quo, and unilaterally positions and actions. Now, we talked about this just a moment ago. What is interesting is, looks like China and Pakistan joined this meeting online, sir. They were not physically present.
They were not physically present. They joined online. They probably knew what was coming. Mr. Ajit Doval, is a very straight shooter, and he's been firing away. So the terrorism was targeted very specifically at Pakistan, and the brinkmanship that is being demonstrated by China, right from the line of control from 𝙒𝙖𝙩𝙤𝙦 going all the way down to Tawang near Arunachal Pradesh. They have been creating enough kind of both global pressure as well as the border pressure. And, so he said, he means no words, which is effectively to say that, this is not the way you want to deal with this is not the way an international, especially a second largest economy nation dealing with its neighbors.
Sir, I can tell you today comments will be like, because we said that US helped India defeat China in Tawang, they are going to say US cannot be trusted. Trust me, at least 10 comments will be there. These are all paid pimp prostitutes that are taking somebody's money and putting it out. In fact, there are questions now asked about whether China is funding some of these dubious activities that is taking place in United States through ISI, through all these, alphabet soup organizations. I'd be very curious to know how this plays out. As much as I criticize the United States for its haphazard handling of the internal matters, they do seem to know some things right. They did give a timely advice to India about what real position was, so India could boldly take the Chinese on in Tawang. I can't stress more about what really played down there, but at the same time, all I'm trying to say is, take a balanced outlook. Don't give me or Sridharji crap. This is an intellectual forum. We are talking about something which is at a higher level, makes you think. If you want to waste our time trying to write, comments or individually addressing us in personal slurs, we know how to delete you completely. You'll never be able to comment on our site. I'm giving you this warning because I want it to be civil and I want it to be thoughtful. Thank you so much. Next question, sir. In a major development, now United States is the largest crude supplier to Europe. This is a significant point because it essentially defangs Russia, sir.
It has. And in fact, I wrote a small piece, which is effectively to say, is it bleeding United States while it is feeding Europe? Because we have been bleeding and the price at the gas stations have been extremely high. But suddenly you find yourself that United States, take a look. If you take a look at October 2021, out of the 50,000, I mean, close to 40% of 44% of the supplies came from from Russia. Then you take all the way, go to December, it's come down to probably less than 5% or 4% of the supplies is now coming from Russia, the crude oil, and close to about 30% of it is now gone to United States. So there are a number of beneficiaries, including the others, but clearly Norway and United States has emerged as the two major blocks of suppliers substituting what was otherwise Russia. So there is an economic pinch. If Russians say that they don't have, then, and they're discounting a significant amount of Russian oil to India as well. So you can see from the chart how United States has played its part in terms of offsetting what otherwise would have been coming from Russia, Sriji. It's a significant kind of a shift.
Sir, Wall Street Journal reporter has been detained by Russian Security Service or Security Agency. It's called FSS. Federal, I'm trying to read this thing here, Federal Security Service on spying charges. Now, the newspaper has denied the allegations that 𝙒𝙗𝙂𝙦𝙦 is a spy. Sridharji, Wall Street is a very prestigious newspaper. And what would be the reason for that person to be a spy? Is this another one of those Cold War strategies that Russia is employing, sir?
Well, I think there's always truth on both sides. So therefore, it's just it won't be I would say a knee jerk. He obviously was proximus to some sensitive Russian location, which prompted this which prompted the Russian security services to FSS. I am told is the new version of the KGB, prompted them to arrest and charge him. And usually, when these guys do, I mean, the treatment is not a human or optimal. So this is the reason why the Wall Street and the global media and the global political organizations have raised a hue and cry. But it's very interesting. It has not happened, but it seems to have happened right in the course of this specific war at this phase, Sriji.
And now documents reveal that the US Marshals were told not to arrest protesters outside the justices' homes. And the House investigation continues Biden's and his family money trail using Treasury red flags. These are kind of linked and kind of independent. First of all, talk to us a little bit about what is this Marshals not being asked not to arrest the protesters in front of justices' homes, sir?
Very simple. If you recall that this is all coming out because the various committees under the new House, under the Republicans, are beginning to conduct investigations. When the Roe versus Wade issue was brought up and that was going to be overturned, you saw a number of progressive groups and what you call as the pro-choice groups waging agitations and going up in front of the Supreme Court justices, Kavanaugh and Amy Barrett and so on. Now, there was hue and cry as to why protection was not given to them. Now it is coming to light, many of these marshals were told just to stay quiet as these protesters made their way. So it just tells you the current state of affairs domestically in United States, be it the immigration issue, be it some of the other stuff that is going on, be it the Pakistani issue that Indians have had a direct kind of brunt, be it some of the issues around the marshals with regard to the law and order. And we have also already covered that the January 6th appears to have been facilitated and also appears to have been a lot of detraction from the truth in terms of what exactly happened within. So what you're beginning to see is the progressive groups and the left wing are having their say. Now, finally, to respond to your point, is there a Chinese hand in this? I will not be surprised if there is not, because the whole fentanyl and illegal immigration, very much, they are hand in glove, Sriji.
Sridharji and viewers, we are going to have a 9 o'clock session with Mr. Sumit Pier, where we trace the trail between China to Pakistan to some of these alphabet soup organizations funding and thereon. By the way, the SB 403 bill that California state is trying to pass using Aisha Wahab, who's an Afghanistan American state Senate member, that has actually gone through the first level and is now in the Judiciary Committee. This Judiciary Committee has 12 members, 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats, and this has been snuck in the very last minute. Equality Labs, Kanmuri Soundararajan put some nasty stuff in there, and now it will be opposed tooth and nail. Unfortunately for India, and Indian Americans, and particularly Hindus, were almost always caught napping. This could not have been possible without elaborate amount of funding and lining up of pockets. I can tell you, Sridharji, the US is going to hell in a handbasket. You are right, sir. You have been saying this for 18, 20 months now, that things are not as what they seem. By the way, sir, that $500 a day rentals are still not evacuated in Manhattan. Those the illegals are staying there. Who's paying those money, sir?
We, the taxpayers. We, the Manhattan.
Me too, sir.
People. No, you are paying for the Afghans, sir. We are paying for the busloads that have come from the border. You're paying for the Afghans. You remember that you are very generous in receiving those Afghan refugees. And I don't know the locations, have I forgotten, but locations somewhere in California. The largest Afghan refugees are in California. And so therefore you also have been very generous, Sriji, your state as well. So we are equally generous. We are both deep blue.
Sir, in the race to the progressive bottom, the US, the New York and California states are in a very, very tight race. Perhaps they are being edged out by the state of Washington. But anyway, we know what's going on. Let's go to Biden Gate. Biden Gate comprises of Laptop Gate, Drug Gate, and Bank Gate, and I can go on and on. What is this new revelations about Hunter Biden, sir?
I think now they're going back. There's a number of, over the years, he was a vice president. He has had a number of connections, and money seems to have gone into various family members going back 20, 30 years. So usually Treasury does what we call, here's an item that needs to be looked at. So they call it as the red flags. So what the House Judiciary Committee is doing is they're saying, okay, you didn't give us the data. Now because we are now formally asking you as the members of the House Judiciary Committee. So with that data, we are now going to plot the curve using the red flags going back to 20 years, right from the time Biden has held very significant positions in the Senate. So therefore, and then of course, 8 years, he was also the vice president. So they're using those flags to go deeper and deeper to establish the entire network of connections and the money received and the money flows.
Sridharji, why have the United States investigators not found the tax haven bank accounts of these families, sir? That's the easiest way, right?
I just don't know whether the investigations thus far doesn't go outside of United States in terms of tax havens. These investigations, these are existing bank accounts. Some of them, they have data pointing to transactions going into Wells Fargo Bank. We reported this last year when these incidents occurred, and when these incidents were reported and people didn't. And Janet Yellen said, no, I will not give it. I cannot give it to the Republicans. It has to come from the appropriate authority within the House. So now they have got the appropriate authority. So their focus now is within United States and the specific institutions, because they have access. They can get access through subpoena. They can get access to the records and they can trace the transactions. So they have record of the transactions. Now all they're doing is going further and further to see how far down this goes, Sriji.
We'll wait and see, sir. And let's now move on to the Russia-Ukraine war. Sweden summons Russia's Stockholm ambassador to complain against the statement that Sweden will be a legitimate target should it join the NATO. I thought it is on the verge, or it has already joined NATO, sir, Sweden?
No, Sweden is the only one whose application has been kept pending by Turkey, if you recall. And
I thought they had agreed to the concessions that Turkey demanded about
no,
could rebels and okay.
no, not yet, Sriji, not yet. So Norway and sorry, Norway, Finland, and so Finland and Turkey, Finland and Sweden. Finland, I think, has got through, but it has to still be ratified by various members. The most recent was Hungary. Again, we covered that in the DGI. So we are now going to have Sweden being Sweden has stated that it is continuing to make progress towards its membership, to which Russia has said, if you choose to join NATO, you now will become a legitimate target to Russia because we consider you as a security threat, which prompted the Swedish government to call its ambassador and basically run the riot act.
And in West Asia, the Middle East tensions continue, with Israel striking more targets near Damascus in overnight raids. US officials sidestep Israeli domestic issues and call it an important ally. This comes in the wake of President Bibi withdrawing that judicial reforms initiative, sir?
Pause. He said, I'll hold and I'll take feedback.
Yeah, you're right. It's not withdraw, pause. Absolutely right. I got the thing correct when I wrote it, but I said it wrong. Yes, pause. Please go ahead, sir.
It's a pause. No, this is within the context of questions that are coming up. Now, there's also questions that are coming up, which is to say, is the agitations in Israel being sponsored by some of the progressive groups within United States?
Yes, yes.
So some of the progressive groups within United States. So many people who think that certain countries are only under target, like including India. No, the progressive groups' reach is around the world. So they spare nobody. They didn't spare Brazil. They don't spare anybody who is non-progressive. So Israel is feeling the heat, and Israel has consistently felt the heat in the United States, including the funding of that the shield that they were developing.
Iron Dome.
Iron Dome. The Iron Dome, $5 billion or $2 to $5 billion aid that was blocked, but subsequently in 24 hours that was reversed.
So and someone cried when they lost the vote.
Indeed. These are some of your very favorite personalities, Sriji, which you pick up. It's called
These are youth icons, sir. I never felt so disconnected from what is heartland of America. So this is like, my goodness, what is going on? Please continue, sir.
So I think that the two issues. One is naturally that Israelis are taking out the surrogates. Whenever the surrogates are taken out, then you have the progressives within the administration raise a lot of hue and cry. And so that cry is feeding itself into the media. So the media asked the question, which is to say, what do you think? Quite rightly, the Department of Defense officials basically said, Israel is an ally. That's an internal issue. They will take care of it. Is an important member because of the stuff that is going on. And right now, Middle East is a hot potato as far as United States is concerned. And US base itself has been under attack in northern Syria. And in many ways, Israel is supporting the US. I won't use the word the present administration, but I would say the US Department of Defense or the US Armed Services or the US Armed Forces. They've been helping in trying to shield the drone attacks and other types of rockets that are being launched by the Iranian surrogates from within Syria.
Thank you, sir. And if you have time, we can just take a couple of questions, Sridharji.
No, I do have time. I think I also want to point out one important thing. China, the Li Keqiang, has in his that Bo forum has appealed.
Oh yeah, I missed that.
Has appealed to all nations, to come and work with China, and China is back to business. And he has stated China is, as a big country, has acted as a responsible power, and it has been a major player in preservation of world peace. And world peace is important for economic development, is the backbone. This is the Chinese kind of approach. We talked about this as the new regime under Xi Jinping took over, the concept of wolf diplomacy and the concept of engagement that will happen. And Xi Jinping has set himself to do that. And by the way, he has divided his power into two groups. Li Keqiang is responsible for economics, and Kai Li is responsible for security. Between these two guys, they effectively control the power. And Xi has done a very clever job by dividing it, but making them report both to him so that he has the ultimate authority. So this is a very important. Many business leaders attended, including the Apple CEO, and as well as the semiconductor CEO from Holland. I forget the name of the company, which is a very significant.
Applied, sir, it is ASML.
ASML. Okay, so I think
NXP. These are the only two big games.
Yeah, no. This is the not NXP. It is probably ASML. Both of them met the Li Keqiang, and they also met the commerce minister. Obviously, what the scope of the discussions is not yet clear, but they're obviously putting subtle pressure to say you guys cannot leave the country.
Here we go. First question. Partha wants to know, what is the future of the Chinese housing market and ghost cities?
The future is very uncertain. The Chinese real estate market is ready to burst. And the fact is that no data comes out. And even if some untoward thing happens, which is likely to, it'll be suppressed and dealt with just as the COVID was dealt with by the Chinese.
Next question, sir. What is the probability of recession for IT sectors in coming 3 months? This is for India.
Well, the projection for the IT services, I don't know if you, this is an item which we haven't covered, the FY23, India reported solid $350 billion of record growth in the IT and IT-related services. That includes some services, but IT part alone is roughly around $280 billion. They're projecting a growth. But the story is that whether there will be this prolific wage growth remains to be seen, but there will be growth in the IT sector for India, basically because all the jobs that are being contracted, or the jobs that are being, or the layoffs that's happening in United States, which means that the additional part of the work only kind of comes to India, but at a substantially reduced type of a price. So that's my kind of macro view of the IT industry as far as India is concerned. Why I'm saying this, just as we came into the show, the recession that we have been forecasting in United States doesn't look imminent based on the GDP data. The last quarter GDP, we grew at 2.6% as against 2.7%. So which means next quarter, that is this current quarter, January to March 31st, we're not going to have negative. We'll be somewhere close to 2.6% or less than 2.6%. So we expect United States not to get into recession based on the current data that we are seeing. We will be probably close to 0% or probably just in the negative territory for 2023, which means that countries like India and so on, which is picking up the work that is flowing out of the developed nations, will mean that there's positive trends for India. And that is the reason why India is expected to grow at 6.2%, when the world itself is going to grow in 2023 at 2.9%, and most of the growth coming from Asia.
I think one line, job growth, yes, salary growth, maybe not. That's what Sridharji is mentioning. Mr. Lee wants to know, Pakistan may default on payments by June. Will USA accept Pakistani economic migrants, or will they pressurize India to take them in?
I just don't think Pakistan is right now in the radar of either India or United States. Probably it's in the radar of China.
And Mr. Lee, do watch our 9 o'clock program with Sumit Peet. We are going to touch upon all these aspects. A lot of new details will emerge. You'll be amazed at how much is happening behind India's back. I mean, India probably knows some of it, but at least for public consumption, a lot of stuff is not visible. So, next question from Jeannie: what are the best sources of news, or do we need to read multiple sources? PGurus, of course, is one obvious choice. Go ahead, sir.
I think it's multiple sources. You can read all media, but be very clear. This world is now divided into two camps. There is no center. There's only right. There's only left. You take with a pinch of salt what right says. You take with a pinch of salt what left says, and make your own judgment what you see as the specific truth. But the story is that the objectivity in the mainstream media has disappeared, is gone.
And Biswajit Arvind wants to know what happened to the missile data that were leaked during the cyber breach that occurred at the solar industries.
I don't have an answer to that question, Sriji.
Biswajit, we will try and see if we can get some answers for you. But at this point of time, we can we can answer many questions, but some are a little difficult. Ameya wants to know: suddenly these caste oppression guys have gone silent. No, they have not. Ameya, are these evil people planning something more? Yes, they are. They are trying to bring a bill in the state of California, SB 403. It has been a complete submarine thing. I did a monologue yesterday on my channel too. Do look at that. Look at where the Indian Americans are taking positions in terms of what happened in a blatant trying to set the consulate building on fire. And it blows my mind that even till today, the San Francisco Police Department has not effected a single arrest. Sir, Sridharji, I don't know if you've seen the consulate of India in San Francisco. It abuts a hospital, sir.
Yeah.
And these are all wooden structures, and there is no separation. If the consulate building had gone on fire, you would have said, I don't know how many diplomats might have died if somebody was working at that time. And the adjacent, this is a hospital.
Animal spirits has no emotion, has no logic. So therefore...
No, a lot happening. Thank you so much, Sridharji. Oh, there's one more question. This is it. We have to stop now. GTR wants to know, is this Bhutan's U-turn or some local political rhetoric, or money has changed hands? All of the above?
No, Chinese pressure. Chinese pressure. It is Chinese pressure. China has built within Bhutan, inside the territory. China has built structures and homes and has settlements, and Bhutan is unable to act against it. Is unable to act against it. So therefore, the pressure is coming from there, and they will China will cherry pick away at the weak sources of at the weak points in any specific nation. That's what we are kind of seeing in Bhutan. By the way, there's a lot of issues in the United States. We try to do this program in 30 minutes and try to cover about 10, 12 issues. A lot of issues. Another train has derailed. Ethanol explosion. And you name it. There's number of issues. There's two at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. We have had two Black Hawk helicopters crash in broad daylight at 10 a.m., killing all the 9 crewmen who were on training. They belong to the 101 Airborne Division, which basically made people comment how unprepared United States in its preparedness for a war, Sriji. So therefore, there's so many issues that we are facing within United States because the United States is under the grip of progressive and woke agenda. Even SVB, one senator asked the question, is the Fed was focused on carbon footprint or they were focused on the supervision of institutions? That is the level of neglect that we are seeing in United States. These are all the hallmarks of a nation in decay.
20,000 people is what I heard, sir, the head count in Fed.
It is. It's huge.
Oof.
It's huge.
My goodness, that's a huge number. Thank you so much, Sridharji. And Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, viewers, and don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Please follow Chityalaji at 𝙤𝙬𝙤𝙪𝙤, and please follow me on Twitter at 𝙤𝙬𝙤𝙪1. If you're not a member of Twitter, we urge you to become a member, because we are committing on Twitter Spaces, which will give you not just one question, one answer, but perhaps a bigger conversation with some of our experts who might be joining. Thank you so much, sir, and we'll be back again on Saturday. And we'll be talking about what happened in the next 48 hours. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.